Welcome to the fall OSU College of Business Dean's Distinguished Lecture. I'm Eileen Klein-Sorge, Dean of the College of Business. Before we get started, I would like to thank Chris Nordyke for taking the initiative and bringing our guest speaker, Alfred Lin, to Oregon. Entrepreneurship has been a major underpinning to the economic vitality of the state, the nation, and the world. On that note, we are very fortunate to host Mr. Lin, the COO, CFO, and chairman of Zappos.com, and have him share his expertise on company culture, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Mr. Lin distinguished his enterprising smarts early on. Back in college, he bought whole pizzas and then resold them by the slice for a profit. His friends might have thought he had an uncontrollable hunger for pizza, but it turns out he just had a healthy appetite for business. Since then, Mr. Lin has exhibited an unyielding pursuit of entrepreneurship. He served as the Vice President of Finance and Administration at Linked Exchange, where he managed to sell the company to Microsoft for $265 million. He co-founded Venture Frogs, an incubator and investment firm that invested in internet startups, including Ask Jeeves, Tell Me Networks, and Zappos.com. He also served as Vice President of Finance and Business Development at Tell Me Networks, helping to grow that business from no revenue to over $120 million in recurring revenues per year. Mr. Lin joined Zappos.com in 2005 and is responsible for all of the company's financial, administrative, and warehouse operations. He has helped grow the business at a rapid pace without compromising the company culture. In less than 10 years, Zappos.com went from an upstart to a huge contender in the e-commerce arena, now stocking 3 million pairs of shoes, handbags, apparel, and accessory items, and specializing in some 1,000 brands that are difficult to find in mainstream shopping malls. Zappos.com surpassed JCPenney as the top internet shoe seller and is forecasted to generate $1 billion in gross merchandise sales in 2008. By working hard to put the customer first, Zappos.com has been characterized through several media sources as a customer service enterprise that just happens to sell shoes. Tonight, Mr. Lin will discuss key insights on building a successful brand, culture, and company in a live interview conducted by College of Business professor Don Newbaum. We encourage the audience to write a question on their note card and pass it to the end of your rows at any time during the discussion. Professors Clay Dibble and Ted Curry, standing at the front of the room, will select audience questions most appropriate for the topic of this lecture. As you are all probably anxious to meet our honored guest, please help me welcome Alfred Lin.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Dean Klein-Sorge. Before we get started with specific questions, I thought I'd ask Alfred to share a little bit more about himself, his personal history, and how he met the CEO of Zappos and how Zappos got started. So, Alfred, why don't you give us a little bit of background on Zappos?
Sure. Before I do that, can I ask by a show of hands how many people have heard of Zappos before today? Wow, that's good.
Good marketing.
I assume many of you are students. We have 2 of our recruiters here, Drew and Laura, and they have a problem for you. So if you can solve this problem, if we get boring and you need some entertainment, we want to know how many palindromes are between 1 and 10,000. A palindrome is a number like 121, 1331. So if you know the number, you can feel free to let Drew and Laura know. They're wearing the shirt. One of our models is we're powered by service. They're wearing a t-shirt, Zappos is powered by beating USC.
Go Beavs.
So yeah, just a little background about myself on the pizza business and the pizza idea. I met Tony Hsieh, who's Zappos' CEO, in college, and he's always been very, very entrepreneurial. He likes to take risks, and in college, he decided that he was going to run the grill in our dormitory, and he decided that he was going to buy pizza ovens, because in the past, all they did was fry up some hamburgers, some fries, make some milkshakes, which was fine, but it was not as much, it wasn't as profitable as, say, pizza. Pizza actually has pretty high margins. So he did all that work, and he worked very hard. He made lots of pizzas, and I would just go downstairs, and I'd say, hey, Tony, can I buy just large pizzas from you at a discount? And he started giving me these discount coupons and sort of frequent pizza eaters program, and so I got a pretty hefty discount from him, and I would just take it upstairs, and I had a large college rooming group, and it began as just selling it to my college roommates who was too lazy to go downstairs, and so I always collected a few dollars after, just for going downstairs. So the joke was that he takes all the risks, and I do as little work as possible to arbitrage away any risk that there is in the business. So that's why I'm the CFO and the COO, and he's the CEO and the entrepreneur. So when we left undergrad, I actually went to graduate school first, and Tony came out a year later in the Bay Area, and he was working for Oracle at the time and not really enjoying working for corporate America, decided to leave and start, back then, an internet company. 1995, there weren't actually that many websites. If you remember 1995, all the websites were manually being indexed by surfers at Yahoo. There was no search technology for websites. And so he was helping create websites because people were just getting into it and creating websites to sort of get the information out there. And he decided, you know what, this is great. I designed some cool websites, but I can't get anybody to go there. So he created Link Exchange, which was a cooperative advertising network that sort of allowed people to when they joined the network, to promote each other. And we grew that business to about 100 people. And in 1998, we sold it to Microsoft for $265 million. At that time, it's no longer true because Microsoft has done many other acquisitions. At that time, it was their third largest acquisition. And it was really interesting because, I mean, obviously Microsoft's a very successful company. For them to be around to 1998 timeframe and only had bought 3 large companies of that size was pretty amazing. The reason we sold Link Exchange to Microsoft was it was a very fun business from 0 to 10 people, 20 people, 30 people. And then it sort of started growing, and we started hiring people into the company that may have had the right technical skills, but they didn't really believe in the vision of the company. They didn't believe in the culture of the company, and it became not a fun place to work. And so while it was really still very successful of a company, we just decided, you know what, we're going to sell that company to Microsoft, do it profitably, do right by our shareholders, and move on. And when we left Link Exchange, we created a fund called Venture Frauds. We basically raised money from friends and family of Link Exchange to invest in internet startups. And the whole idea is we really enjoy the very early stages of a company. And so we thought it'd be great to raise a fund, incubate some great companies. And in that process, we both fell in love with Zappos, both for a variety of reasons. One, we started out as an investor. It almost happened, it was completely by luck that we happened to invest in the company. The founder of the company, Nick Swimmer, was looking for a specific pair of shoes. He was walking down a mall in San Francisco. He went to one store, couldn't find the right size. Went to a second store, couldn't find the right color. Went to a third store, he couldn't find the right style. So kind of left the mall empty-handed and a little frustrated. And he went back home, 1999. Google was just starting to index the web in a very logical way using technology. He searched on Google, couldn't find a place where he could buy his shoes either. So it was 1999, it was roaring times in Silicon Valley, so he decided he was going to quit his job and start a company. He called me and Tony. We were funding companies at Venture Frogs, and his pitch was so bad we almost deleted his voicemail. First of all, he didn't come with a business plan. He left a voicemail, and what he said was, hey, I have this crazy idea. I want to sell shoes on the internet. And at that point, I think either me or Tony had our finger on the delete button because it sounded preposterous. And then he went on and said, well, the market in the US is $40 billion. 5% of it is already being done by mail order back in 1998-99 timeframe. So what we really invested in was a big market because it doesn't take a rocket science to know that, well, the internet will be bigger than mail order. So if it could be 5% of 40 billion or 2 billion on mail order, it should be bigger than that on the internet. And so we started investing in that idea, and over time we felt like not for the opportunity that it creates, and also the culture of the company was one that we want to sort of be more and more a part of. At Zappos, we think of ourselves as it used to be an internal saying, now it's external, it's on our website, that we're a service company that just happens to sell shoes and handbags and clothing. And eventually we can sell anything and everything if we stick to our knitting. And what our knitting is our corporate culture. We think of our corporate culture as really the only strategic advantage that we have. We have 1,200 brands, and we have great brand relationships. Over time, people can copy that if they wanted to. We have a great website. Well, over time, people can copy that too. We have some great training programs and policies that is very pro-consumer. People can reverse engineer that and copy that as well. But it's very hard to get the culture right, and we believe that you can't provide great service without a great culture. So we spent a lot of time and energy from the beginning of the process of interviewing employees through training and through even evaluation processes to make sure that we pay a lot of attention to corporate culture. So much so that when you come and interview at Zappos, there's a portion that is about whether you can technically do the job, and then there's a portion that our HR team does, which is about whether you fit into the corporate culture of the company, whether you believe in the vision of our company, what we're trying to achieve, whether you believe in our core values, and we have 10 core values. And then that's just the recruiting process and the interview process. And then for the first 5 weeks when you're on the job, we put you through training, and 2 weeks of it is in-class training about the company history, the company culture, the core values, what service means to us and why it's important. Then we put our trainees to 2 weeks where they're on the phone answering questions from customers, and then after that they spend a week in our distribution center pick, pack, and shipping product to our customers. And you go through that 5-week process, you can't leave without having a good understanding about the guts of the business, how important service is to us. It also screens out people who think that that kind of work is beneath them. You can be the best lawyer in the world or the best accountant in the world, but if you don't believe in service, you're not going to provide good service to internal clients inside the company. And then on our yearly annual review process, 50% of it is based on goals that we sort of determine or mutually agreed upon goals for your job, and then 50% is whether you live and breathe and inspire the culture. So that's a little bit of an overview of Zappos and why we believe we've been very lucky and very fortunate to have, in the last 9 years, accomplished what we've accomplished.
All right, thanks. You've talked a lot about core values, and I have a list of them here. I thought I'd spend some time letting you talk about them individually. Your first core value for the company is deliver wow through service. What does that mean, and how do your employees execute on that core value?
Well, obviously we want to provide great service to our customers. We also believe in providing great service to our employees, our brand partners, and our investors as well. I mean, when you ever have a good service experience, when you say wow, that's what we're trying to achieve, and that's what we're looking for. In our call center, for example, we don't have a script for you to read to answer so customer questions that might come up time and time again. You're encouraged to, you know the answer, you're encouraged to put it in your own words and to connect with the customer and to wow that customer. And that's the criteria that we use. We listen to calls. Our QA process is not did you check off this box, the second box, the third box, but really was the customer wowed? Would they say wow on the phone? That was a great service experience. And so that's what, that's what it means to us.
Okay. What about create fun and a little weirdness? How do you do that?
So, just background on these 10 core values, we asked all of our employees a few years ago, what does a culture mean to them? And what should our core values be? A lot of companies have values, and they're kind of plaques on the wall, and we wanted to create core values that meant something. And for us, these core values kind of constitute what we believe is important to Zappos and the culture. So create fun and a little weirdness was one of the more controversial core values because people are like, weird, I don't want weird people in the company. Well, that's what it's little weird, not a lot weird. Work is hard, and you want it to be fun, and this is our way of saying we want it to be a fun environment. We want it to be a diverse environment. We accept people from all different backgrounds, and we celebrate your individual personalities and your little quirks, and we like that. So that's what it means, I guess. You should also ask Drew and Laura what it means to them as well. Yeah, you just want to sit there?
Looking at your website, I saw some things like random acts of kindness parades. That's, I think, one of the weird things you do. Can you talk about that? That's an example of the weirdness that you all created at Zappos.
So I guess this is one of the things we encourage all of our employees to come up with ideas to make the business better, to make the culture better. And the first probably week or so, or second week of new hire class, there's a new hire orientation, and Tony, myself, and Fred Mosler, who used to run our merchandising team, who now has no title because we want people to aspire to no title and not be caught up with their title. The three of us get together and tell all our employees that it's your responsibility to make the culture better. Live, breathe, inspire the culture. And also, if you have a good idea for the business, you're free to run with that idea. You're empowered to run with that idea. And so we tell them all the time that there's three of us. If we came up with all the ideas, there would be three good ideas in a time frame of whatever it is, a week, a month, a year. We have 1,600 employees. If we let all of our employees run with their good ideas, it's 1,600 potentially good ideas. And that's how a big company can still be nimble and build a great company and not have it be bogged down in bureaucracy. We've tried to make the company as flat as possible, and people in our call center, for example, frontline employees that answer the phone can do just as much as the manager can to make the customer happy. There's no difference between a manager and a frontline employee, and that's true basically throughout the business. Obviously, we have certain controls in place. One of the lessons we've learned is you want to start small and stay focused. So if you're very passionate about a product category that you want to do and get into, we'll start out with a small amount of money, let you sort of run with that idea, and we'll let the data tell us how that works. So the random acts of kindness, getting back to the original question about the random acts of kindness parade, we have a bunch of employees who thought it would be great to boost morale by parading through the office. And the first time it happened, it looked a little cheesy, a little weird. Then it got more themed, and it was more special. And the last 2 years, some of the more notable parades in the last 2 years, one was the Oktoberfest parade. Actually, Drew and Laura were in the parade where they dressed up in lederhosen, parade through, pass out root beer and pretzels. And this random acts of kindness parade was, our finance team decided that they were kind of in the back office working, inputting, playing with Excel spreadsheets and models, and they never get out very much. So they decided once a week, they'd pick 3 people in our 3 different buildings, and they would just go say hi to them. The whole finance team would just go over and say hi to them and parade around them and say how great of a job they are and try to get to know them. So creates a lot of happiness and also a lot of team spirit.
So another thing I saw is the head shaving. How many times have you had your head shaved?
4 or 5 years, I think now. So this started out as a good idea after a round of drinks. I dare you to shave your head tomorrow, and then it's like, oh, if you do it, I'll do it. And so now it's kind of a tradition. It's blue, bald, and beautiful. So you have a choice of shaving your head or spray painting your hair blue. Zappos' color is blue. And we try to make it a team bonding experience and a fun event. We auction off the ability to shave my head or Tony's head. Some people donate their hair to Lots of Love and things like that. We try to do good at the same time as part of the event as well.
Do you think this sort of culture could be adopted by other firms, or does it help that you were a startup and you were able to start it from scratch? Or
I think every company has a culture. They just they have to decide whether they want to spend the time to make it better. And most companies don't spend the active thought process to make the culture better. It's natural for us to think about our business as it's growing, to think about what business processes should be put in place, what kind of employees we need to hire, what kind of skills we need to develop in our employees. But really, there's not a lot of thought being put into how do I grow the culture, and that's what I think is different about Zappos. So I think you shouldn't try to adopt our culture. I'm not sure that would necessarily work. You should start with your own culture and think about how to continuously improve that over time.
And what about another core value you have, being humble? How does that play out in Zappos?
Well, I think being humble is very, very important. I think when people think that they know everything, they tend to start making stupid mistakes. And besides, nobody really likes to hang out with arrogant people, who thinks that they know it all. We have this philosophy where everybody can learn from each other, and we can all try to glean glimpses of really good, useful information from everyone else. So one of our core values is to be humble, and while we have been very successful, the way we look at it is we've been also very, very lucky and very, very fortunate. And some of the things that have happened in our history where it seems like mishaps has been very, very fortunate for us. We started the company in 1999. It was funded with a small amount of money, and in 2001, 2002, the world kind of had a little bump in the road in the economy, and it was very hard to raise money. And that inability to raise money has allowed us to be very, very, just look at our expenses and try to build a business that's very lean and mean, and that has allowed us to sort of continue to grow the way we want to grow.
So how do you balance the notion of having fun and being zany and crazy at work with the operational aspect of actually having to get the work done? I mean, how do you manage that from an employee performance measure as well as rewarding them?
Well, I think you can do both, because it's important to have fun, and people are much more effective if they get along with each other. A lot of class, in class situations, you do a lot of projects by yourself, and that makes you a good individual contributor. But often, having big class projects, you have to learn how to work with each other, and having fun with each other allows you to bond with someone else, and it lets you know how to work with someone else a lot more effectively. So we actually encourage our employees to spend 10 to 20% of their time outside the office, because we believe that it actually helps with productivity. Something like we would like to actually measure scientifically, but we're pretty sure that it increases productivity more than the 10 or 20% outside of work. There are certain other activities, for example, like we could certainly have our landlord decorate the office and do it in such a way so that we don't have to do that. We actually decided that the best way to do that was to give every single team a conference room to go decorate so they can own it and make it their own. And they got a small little budget, and it turned out to be a team bonding experience in the process. So we saved money. It was a more interesting office environment than every single office looking the same. People took pride and ownership in it, in doing that, and it was also good for the company in terms of team bonding as well.
I saw a recent quote that said that Zappos has Amazon-style growth without Amazon-style losses. How have you been able to maintain that track record when so many other online retailers have struggled?
I think we have stayed very close to our knitting about being very focused on the customer. On any given day, Zappos' sales, 75% comes from repeat customers. So we're very big on whoever we do sell to give them a great experience so they continue to come back and tell others about Zappos. All of our growth has been through repeat customers and word of mouth. It's not through spending a ton of money on advertising. We couldn't lose the type of money that Amazon did in its first few years because we couldn't raise any money. So that was a fortunate thing that kind of taught us to just keep sort of our finances in check, and we had to be creative. Not having money a lot makes you creative, right? You have to think about how you're going to pay the bills, and so we sort of thought about what business we're going to be in, how we're going to charge our prices. We weren't going to be a discount company because we need to pay the bills. So we've always maintained that we're going to be an MSRP company. We sell our prices at around MSRP or above MSRP, but we're going to provide the best service. And we had to sort of work with our vendors to get lines of credit set up with them that allows us to continue to grow as we grew and grow those credit lines. And we had to work with banks to sort of get financing so that we can buy the inventory that we have. I think that, the company that I was at before, Tell Me Networks, they raised $265 million. The first year they had zero revenue and blew $60 million in cash. Money doesn't really solve very much except for your lack of creativity. You can throw money at problems, and that sometimes is good, but in entrepreneurial situations, it can really kill the company.
You've held 3 positions at Zappos: COO, CFO, and chairman. How do you balance those 3 positions, and do you see them in conflict, or what do you feel is most important of the 3 positions and the most difficult of the 3?
That's an interesting question. I think, most of the time the chairman job is done by the CEO, and our CEO doesn't really like working with the board, so he doesn't want that job, so I have that job. And COO, CFO, I'm not a classically trained finance guy. Most finance people are, accountants, or they worked on Wall Street in finance, or very much an operating finance person. Actually, I'm very, very good at math, but I've never really taken an accounting class myself, although I could probably take the exam and do okay. But I think what's important is, for both CFOs and COOs, I think my advice to either side of that job is, if you're a finance person, you have to be able to relate to the operations and explain the finances in an operational way. I think the best CFOs are operationally minded. They can turn the financials into the right metrics and the right few metrics that help boost the company's sort of operations. If you're an operations person, not understanding how to read the financials is really a disservice to the company, because you can't just operate the business purely on 3 metrics. There's a reason why the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow statement has all those numbers. You can't, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 metrics, they're all summary statistics. They only summarize what's going on, to give you a summary view of what's going on. They don't give you the full view. And so I think operating people, their mistake is they only operate and try to work on things that are their 3 core KPIs.
Zappos has a stated policy where you won't sell any item on the internet unless you have it already in the warehouse and available for sale. So how do you manage the cost of carrying all that inventory as a startup, and particularly as you grow your product lines and move into new areas? How are you going to manage the cost of keeping that policy?
So when Zappos started, we were only supposed to take transactions, create a website, provide all the selection, let you buy it, and then we're going to just send the orders to all the appropriate brands and their manufacturers. And we started doing that, and it wasn't immediate, but we kind of later knew that we weren't getting the right feeds, and it wasn't, every now and then a customer would place an order, and the feed would be wrong, and the brand may have forgotten to send the product out. And that just creates for a really bad customer experience. And over time, we started to buy more and more inventory as we generated more cash flow. And at some point in the company's history, we decided there was 25% of our revenue that was coming from drop shipping, and the other 75% was from inventory product. And we sort of had to think to ourselves, do we really mean that we're a service company? And if we are, then we have to forego that revenue. It was probably the hardest and the easiest decision we've ever had to make. It was hard because it was a lot of revenue, and all of that revenue was, we were just taking the handling fee. We weren't really have to sort of fulfill it, take the inventory, et cetera. But we felt pretty passionate that was the right thing to do. In terms of financing all of that inventory, we have $180 million of inventory on our balance sheet, and so we work with our vendors to get special dating terms, and we have a line of credit with Wells Fargo, US Bank, and KeyBank. And another fortunate thing for us is those are the banks that are actually in the consolidating position as opposed to the banks that are having credit situations right now. So we've been pretty fortunate and been able to finance our inventory through those 2 means.
Okay. Did you have difficulty convincing premium brands like Versace to put their products on the internet with?
At the beginning, I think when we funded the company, the day after Tony and I funded the company, there was this, and we got Fred Mosler, who at the time was VP of Merchandising, to join Zappos. He was at Nordstrom. He had set up, about 80 or so relationships, meetings with at the biggest shoe show, which was in Las Vegas, the next day. And he started going in and saying, hey, I'm no longer with Nordstrom's, I'm with Zappos now. And out of those 80 meetings that he had already set up under Nordstrom's, I think he got kicked out of all but 3 meetings. It was a pretty hard road getting to where we have 1,200 brands. And we don't like taking no for an answer in general, so we have a team of people who we kind of screen out. Do you like taking no for an answer? And it's one of those things where if you like taking no for an answer, it's probably not a good place for you.
Mm-hmm. Are you finding that companies are saying no to you less as you become more well-known?
Yes and no. It still took Nike 9 years when we found that Nike would sell us. I think Fred almost fell off his chair, and he was supposed to type an email to tell everyone that we got Nike, and his fingers were frozen over the keyboard. We had to send the email for him.
What about international sales? What percentage of Zappos sales come international? Is that a market that you intend to tap? And if you do, how do you anticipate it?
Less than 1% of our sales is international. We'll primarily ship in the U.S. And one of the things that we grapple with over time has been, should we expand internationally? And we have a lot of people who tell us that there is no great business these days that's not a global business. You need to diversify. But the hard part is, if you want to provide great service, well, what does great service mean to a different country? You have to sort of know that and understand that before you go into that country. So we decided we're going to experiment with that with Canada first. And when we tried to go into Canada, it was not as obvious as everybody thought. We had to sort of get product over the border. We had lots of customers who were already doing that, so we figured that would be pretty easy. We had customers who were living in Canada. They would order the product, send it to somewhere like Vancouver, and then having a friend or a family member send it over the border. And then we found out that not only was it more difficult, every single brand, we had to get brand relationships to sign off and say yes, that we can sell into Canada, because some of them have licensed out the right to sell internationally to another company. So we have not decided to go anywhere else in the world, but we do ship internationally. You have to call a special 800 number. We ship it from our warehouse to you internationally, but it is a different service experience. And we'll have to sort of think about how we do that over time.
What has been the biggest challenge that you faced at Zappos since joining the firm a few years ago?
I think the thing that we spent a lot of time on is how to constantly take the culture to the next level, and that's probably a biggest challenge. It's not an obvious thing. It's obvious that you want to grow the business by whatever percent. You want to do that. And the next question and the growth question is, well, how do you do that? And you need more people, you need more resources, et cetera, et cetera. So those things kind of lend itself to sort of critically thinking about strategy. On the culture side, for many, many years when we were growing at 100%, 200%, the number of employees who were at the company for more than a year was outnumbered by the number of employees who'd been at the company for less than a year. So just, the old guard who really understands the culture were outnumbered, and trying to figure out how to create an environment where we could teach the culture and improve the culture was something that we still continue to think about, and to make the culture stronger and stronger.
Okay. A couple questions from the audience. Several students here are interested in being an entrepreneur, and so they would like to know what sort of experiences have you had, or what should they do now as students to help them become successful entrepreneurs in the future?
I think, I don't think there's a secret sauce or formula. There's incredibly, you have to find something that you're passionate about, really, really passionate about, because every business will get very hard and very difficult at some point in time. You should create a vision that is bigger than you could possibly imagine you achieving, and follow that vision, chase that dream, not the money. And I say that because companies will go in and out of good and bad times, and the people, in the end, the most passionate and the people who want to win end up winning. They'll figure out a way to win, versus people who are just chasing the money. When the profits start declining because we're going through a bad time, those people tend to leave. So I think those are very, very important. Don't discount how much hard work is involved in being an entrepreneur. I don't recommend being an entrepreneur or a serial entrepreneur. It gets harder and harder and harder, because there are more and more people in the world. Everybody wants to build a successful business if you're going to be in the business world. So if you have a great idea, a passion for that idea, and you're willing to work hard, those are good starters. You have to have a good dose of luck too. A lot of things can happen with just what seems to be randomness. But the one thing about luck that I do think is interesting was there was a study about people who thought they were lucky and people who thought they were not lucky. And the people who thought they were given these tasks, and they were supposed to go through the newspaper and count the number of photos in that newspaper. And the people who thought who were lucky didn't do the task, because throughout the newspaper there were all these little notes or headlines. If you read this, the answer is 35. There are 35 photos, and you can just go to the proctor and tell them 35 and collect an extra $100 for being there. And the people who considered themselves lucky found that more often than people who were less lucky. And really what that shows is that you have to be open-minded. You have to look beyond just the task at hand and to think about opportunities beyond what is right in front of you.
When you're looking to hire employees, what sort of characteristics do you look at that makes them an attractive employee for your company?
For us, I think it's someone that believes in our vision and are passionate about what we're trying to get accomplished. They fit into our core values, and that they can do the job that we are asking them to do. If we had to choose, obviously we want all of those things. If we had to choose, we'd rather teach people the skills and have someone who's very passionate, very determined, and believes in the core values and believes what we are trying to achieve over someone who has all the right skills and doesn't believe and is not passionate and is just there for a job. One of the things that we screen for is there's a book by Chip Conley about peak, and he uses Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He simplifies it into a pyramid of 3 things instead of 5 to 7 things. And on the base level, you go to work because it's for the money. And then the next level is you're there, you go to work because it happens to be your career. You're trying to build a reputation. And the third level is that it's a calling. And we really want to hire people who believe that this is their calling to do whatever job that they want to do.
What drives you to keep going with Zappos and not sell it off and start up another company?
Well, we believe that Zappos is a very special place. We're trying to create an environment where this is not just hopefully it's the last job I ever have, and we're not just trying to create that environment for me or a few folks. We're trying to create it for all of our employees that come into Zappos. And hopefully we can build a company that survives longer than any of us in this room. And that's what keeps me going, because I think it's interesting to create companies that are self-sustaining and outlast all of us.
Okay. And someone would like to know, what is taught at Zappos University?
So one of the things that we're trying to get accomplished is to set up a university at Zappos. It started out because we created a training program for all of our employees. Every single employee who's hired into our headquartered office goes through that same training program. And we thought, well, why don't we create that for a whole bunch of other departments? Our merchandising team takes people who are fresh out of college from fashion school and teaches them all the things that they need to learn to become a successful buyer at Zappos. And so we're trying to sort of create a bunch of classes like that, cross-functional in the company, to teach all the right skills so that you can advance. We believe that people should be allowed to determine their own career paths. So we want to teach you all the right skills, and it's up to you to sort of take it upon yourselves to define what your career goals and your career paths are inside of Zappos.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about the Zappos Culture book? I see you have a copy there. And,
So this is the 2007 edition of our culture book. Each year we ask all of the employees in the company to write a paragraph or 2 about what the culture means to them. And except for typos, it's unedited. We put in the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's a good thing that there's not too much ugly in here, but besides that, it's unedited. And this is our way of saying, you know what, the culture, even though we have these 10 core values, and we believe a lot in the core values, the real culture is from what the employees say, not what I say or a few select individuals say. This is a collection, basically, of what the employees say at the company, and we read it, and it's interesting. We've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, and if you go through and read the different editions year over year, it's interesting to see how things change over time. What's important to one department one year and how that changes, it gets addressed, and how the culture has actually evolved throughout our company's history.
I've seen pictures of you on the internet in a bunny suit handing out candy to children at community events. So could you talk a little bit about ways that Zappos is involved in the community and how it gives back, and how you're tied to the community of Las Vegas?
Yeah, first of all, I think I lost a bet. So I had to wear a bunny suit for Easter, and I was at our one of our outlet stores handing out candy, and so that was a lot of fun actually. Get to be a kid with all the kids coming in handing out candy. That was a lot of fun. We have a variety of partnerships with sort of foundations in Las Vegas. One of which is the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. Just a few weeks ago, we were, it's fall now, so we had a carnival, and it was kind of a thing to sort of do and celebrate both Oktoberfest and having a carnival during that time of the year. It was also customer service week, so we wanted to recognize our customer loyalty representatives. So we kind of thought about how we can make this all into one event, and so the carnival was a lot of fun. There were some games that were at the carnival, and every single ticket that we sold at the game was donated to juvenile diabetes, for example. So it was a way to recognize our employees, it was a way to have fun, and it was a way to give back all at the same time. And we do that with the National Childhood Cancer Foundation as well. We have a pretty good partnership there where we, every year we donate a bunch of toys. We have a toy drive for all of the kids during the Christmas season, and we not only just donate the toys or the money, we actually took all the toys and all the and handed them out Christmas Eve to all the kids. So those are the type of things that we do to give back, and I can name a few others.
Okay. Sustainability and green retailing has become an important variable to consumers. What is Zappos doing in order to be more environmentally conscious?
Yeah, that's a good question. A few years ago, nobody would have asked that question, but we do as much as we can. Obviously, we're a big consumer of oil, which is not very green, but everything that we use in the warehouse, we try to use recycled paper, and we try to recycle all the cardboard that we have in there. We try to think about those things. We work with UPS a lot. Just in the past few years, when oil was very, very expensive, to figure out how to deliver our products to our customers more efficiently. We also think about how we can, right now there's this whole network where product is made in Asia or in China, they get shipped over on these big tankers, then they get distributed to warehouses for all of our 1,200 brands, and then they get sent to us. And then we send it to our customers. And we've actively worked to sort of make that journey shorter and shorter and shorter and less distributed and less fragmented. And so hopefully we're doing a lot in that front to sort of help with the environment.
And what is a vegetarian shoe? I see that on your website.
I guess it's made with products that are fully vegetarian. You can eat it.
But before you, after you wear it. When you were a venture capitalist, you must have looked at dozens and dozens of business plans and evaluated and used certain screening mechanisms to evaluate the merits of different plans or not, whether they're fundable or not. And now that you've run Zappos for 4 or 5 years, how has your screening process changed? I mean, do you look at companies and business plans differently now that you've run an organization such as Zappos for a few years? Would different things be important now in your screening mechanisms than they were when you were running Venture Frogs?
Yeah, I think we had, so the criteria for most venture firms, and they're in different order, is the size of the market dynamics, and how competitive environment of the market. That's one. If you're solving a specific need, is your product something that people really need, or do they just want it, or it's a nice to have? So obviously you want need versus want to like to have. And then you look at the team, and you look at things that that team can create in terms of competitive advantage. All those things are all still very, very important. I think the one thing that I think is more important now that I look back is the team dynamics and the culture of the company sort of gets founded very, very early. The DNA of the company and how they operate and how they think about how they're going to solve problems get sort of just created very, very early on, and we pay much more attention to that than we did before.
Okay. You've had many amazing experiences in a very short time in your career. What have been the keys to your success that you've found along the way?
I think I don't really look back and think about keys to success. I think I look back and try to think about all the things that we did wrong and we wish we would have done differently and try to learn from those things. And I think failure is just as important as success. I think it's important to make mistakes, just don't make them again and again and again. And there are lots of mistakes that if you don't make them, you won't learn. I mean, when I started, and we were actively trying to sell Link Exchange to a bunch of other companies, a very well-known entrepreneur, Jerry Yang, said that it's very important to fire bad people as quickly as we can. I don't think we couldn't have listened to him more, and we couldn't have tried to take his advice sort of to heart as much as we could, but it didn't occur to us until we had a bad employee and we tried to work with them and see the effects of a bad employee can have on a company, and actually then go fire that person to sort of learn that lesson and learn it well. So I think you have to make some mistakes. You just don't want it to make it again and again and again, and you have to learn from them.
Can you talk more about some mistakes, maybe some specific mistakes that you've made and what you've learned from them?
So, you know, one of them, again, I'll say again, is just people who are not right for the team. You have to sort of get them out of the company as quickly as possible. The other mistakes relate to just having teams, figuring out how to get teams to work together, and to sort of form teams that can work together. As a company grows, you're not going to be able to do everything yourself. So being able to get other people to work together to accomplish the same goal is important. And so many times you'll look to the team and think about who contributed the most and who contributed the least. And I think for a certain stage, that's the right thing to manage. But also there's a time when you want to manage where everybody fails if the team fails and everybody succeeds when the team succeeds. And that we don't teach very much. We always teach about winning and you know, individually winning versus the team winning. And we talk about a lot at Zappos about we versus I. And teams can accomplish a lot more than any individual. So you've got to keep that in mind.
Talk a little about your competitors. Who do you view as your competitors? Is it the click and mortar, the brick and mortar stores, the retailers, and?
So 93 to 95% of commerce is still done offline. So really the real competition is brick and mortar, not other online companies. We've always thought of our competition as the instant gratification that one gets by walking into a store, picking out the things that you like, and walking out with the things that you want. And so over time, when we started the company, we started out by shipping ground, and over time we started upgrading the shipping, and now we ship almost all of our product to our customers overnight. And that's getting as close to instant gratification as possible.
What's the company policy on balancing family and work? Do you include such things as parental leave, flex time for working parents?
I think we have pretty good benefits on parental leave, maternity leave, and flex time. We have programs, for example, you can work 4/10s instead of working 5 days. And a lot of people, there are certain jobs that lend themselves to telecommuting, and there are certain jobs that do not. And so it's done by department basis if you're asking about telecommuting. The whole notion of work-life balance means that in some sense work sucks. And we try to just make an environment that work doesn't suck as one of the things that we do to create a work-life balance.
Okay, your core values are different than most traditional companies. Do you feel this is partly because your workforce is traditionally young, or do you have a pretty diverse workforce in terms of age groups?
I think our workforce is skews a little to the young side, but we have all ages and stages in the company, and we're just trying to create an environment that is basically allows anybody to come in and who wants to work with us to work well and to have a fun time doing work.
A couple of the questions students have asked about other opportunities. Have you thought about opening any retail stores in addition to your outlet stores? And what about the catalog business? Is that something that you have thought about entering?
I think for us, the store concept we like our outlets, but it's not been as scalable as opening up another website. So we probably wouldn't open up more stores. On the catalog side, we actually do have something that we call a magalog, something in between a magazine and a catalog. We started out with 1 issue a year during holiday. Now it's 2 issues, and next year we're probably going to 4 issues. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that there is a combination of fashion advice as well as an ability for you to buy that product in that catalog. And hopefully one day it's a book that you can put on your coffee table and enjoy having it on a coffee table, for example.
Okay. What is something you wish you would have known about business before you got started?
Oh, how hard it is. I think business is, it's my drug of choice to use. You know, I was talking to Chris this morning about just why we do it. I can work many long hours, but it's just very exhilarating and tiring all at the same time. And so, you know, I equate the high that I get from working in the business I'm in because I'm so passionate about it as if it was a drug of my choice.
We've had other CEOs sit in the same position you are, telling about the sacrifices they've had to make to their family and their and things like that. Could you tell us about any personal sacrifices that you've potentially had to make and any regrets you might have about based upon the success that you've had and the time that it takes to run a company your size?
Let me choose my words wisely. I think, in all seriousness, I think my wife has made more sacrifices than I have. I'm doing what I love, and I'm often away traveling in our distribution center trying to meet with vendors. So I'm away from her a lot, and she's been very, very understanding. In terms of sacrifices that I think, I wish I had more time with her and spend more time with her. But at the same time, you know, you try to just fit as much as you can in every single day, and I consider myself very fortunate and very lucky, and I don't really regret any of the choices I've made in life. So I can't think of a particular sacrifice that sticks out in my mind as I wish I would have changed my life in one way, shape, or form.
All right. What's been the toughest decision you've ever had to make since you've been at Zappos?
Letting go certain people who were friends of mine or of the company and who no longer could scale with the business. It's always it's great to hire your friends, and I would encourage you to hire your friends, but it's very hard to let your friends go.
And what about the relationship between you and Tony? Obviously, you guys have been friends for a long time. How does that impact your relationship in the day-to-day operations?
I think we have a very good understanding. I think when we first started working together, we kind of thought in completely different ways, and over time we still think in completely different ways, but we kind of get to the same answer from very different ways and different angles. And when that happens, I think that just means that's the right decision. And so that kind of reinforces itself. We kind of work on very different things inside the company, and I think there are certain things we overlap, and there are certain things he works on more, and there are other things I work on more. And finding someone that complements your skills is probably one of the most important things that you need to sort of think about when you pick partners, whether it's friends, you know, your significant other, or your business partners.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what skills do you bring to the table that complement his, and what does he bring that fills in gaps that you might not have?
I think he's very creative. He thinks very much out of the box. I am much more into thinking in frameworks and in an analytical framework, a strategic framework. So he throws ideas on the wall that seems far-fetched and outlandish, and I try to either refine them or tell him he's out of his mind. Those are, for example, some of the differences. I just like to analyze much more than he does.
Okay. What's been the best day of your career?
The best day?
Mm-hmm.
When we hired Laura. Best day, probably every single day is a pretty good day at Zappos. I think the best day was when I joined Zappos on the first day. I got a very welcoming I've known the company for a long time, but when I actually ended up working at the company, I had a very warm and receptive welcome, and we try to have that happen for all of our employees that come into Zappos when they graduate our training program.
It says that men and women have different shopping habits, and particularly when they use the internet. Do you find that to be the case for Zappos consumers, and how do you accommodate for the differences?
Well, one of the misconceptions is that Zappos is really, have a lot more female shoppers than men shoppers, and it turns out that's not actually the case. We sell probably in terms of dollars 50-50. 50% of our sales are women's shoes, 50% are men's shoes. Women tend to buy more pairs and spend less per pair of shoe, and men tend to buy fewer items and spend more per pair of shoes. So that's one thing that's different. We don't cater our sites to women or men. We just try to make it a very efficient shopping experience. And so just trying to make it as easy as possible to shop on our site.
Okay. One of the advantages of having an online website is that you're able to track changes that you might make to your promotions or the website itself or the page layout or features that you have. What sort of marketing tools do you use on your website, and what information and insights have you gained from those practices?
Well, this is a very interesting thing about wisdom of the crowds. The customer's always right, but that's the crowd. They're always right. And we've evolved our website for the last 9 years by basically doing A/B testing. If we have an idea to change the way the website looks, we'll test it out. Site 1, Site 2, and see which one performs better, and we've evolved that for the last 9 years of our site. The site's 9 years old. It's evolved slowly, and we decided this year to roll out a completely new platform for our website. It's called Zeta. You can go check it out. It's zeta.zappos.com instead of www.zappos.com. And that website, with all the new technology that's in it, et cetera, doesn't convert as well as something that has evolved over the last 9 years where we've tested it again and again. In terms of the actual tools that we use, we don't use anything specific. We just started using SiteSpec for our new site, but it's not that hard to have sort of URL A and URL B and see which one converts better. Just track that information with our logs.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the growth of Zappos, how you've chosen the different markets you've entered, and what new markets do you anticipate entering in the future?
So we invested in footwear. That's how the company got started, and even today, 90% of our sales come from footwear. Decided to go into other product categories by one of 3 ways. One is our customers tell us what they want to buy from Zappos. So customers saying that they want to buy handbags or accessories. We have pretty detailed information about what they want to buy from us, and we get into those product categories. Another area that we go into is when our employees are pretty passionate about a product category, and somebody is very passionate about creating a site. For example, running.zappos.com. We have teams people who are runners, excuse me, and they wanted to create a site where it outfits the person from head to toe with running gear. And if employees are passionate about that, we want them to run with their idea, and we've created running.zappos.com, couture.zappos.com, and outdoor.zappos.com because of the passions of these individual groups. And the third way that we've gotten into other product categories is because our brand partners are very passionate about it. For a long time, we were one of the biggest retailers of Oakley golf shoes, and the brand manager for Oakley came over and said, you know, you guys should really sell our sunglasses because that's what we're known for. You guys are doing great. You're like our number one or number two retailer of golf shoes on the internet for us, but we're really known for footwear. So we decided, heck, why don't we try it? We started selling their sunglasses, and at the time our warehouse wasn't ready for it, so these little sunglasses would go out in the smallest box that we're putting shoes in. But inside of 3 weeks, it was a medium-sized brand. At the time that it was, we had 700 brands. It was the top 300 brands inside of 3 weeks. So that turned out to be a pretty good idea. But the common thing about what we think is good product categories for us is we need passionate people to want to run that business or that new product category well. And so we have decided to sort of go after things that our brand partners are passionate about, our employees are passionate about, or our customers are passionate about.
Okay. As companies grow larger, it becomes very difficult for them to maintain their culture. What sort of obstacles have you discovered at Zappos to help maintain your culture, and what sort of programs are you putting in place to make sure that you maintain that small feel that you've created?
So when a company is small, you have the luxury of interviewing every single person that comes into the company and figure out whether they fit in the company. And we have just, the growth sort of at some point you can't do that, and you just have to put frameworks in place that allow you to have checks and balances to check for culture. And so as we've grown, we've decided to, as I said, think about culture as a competitive advantage, as a strategic asset. So the training program started out as we needed to train people because we did things differently. Well, then we thought about, well, it actually adds to our culture. So how do we incorporate the training time to sort of think about how we can improve the culture and how we can teach the culture and get people to bond in that environment. So originally it was just a class for people who were going into our customer loyalty team and being representatives on the phone. And over time, we've made every single employee go through that because it was good for the culture. It was good for them to learn the guts of the business before they start their job, et cetera, et cetera. And things like that are the things that we kind of think about and keeps our head sort of spinning about ways to sort of improve the culture over time.
Okay. Could you talk about the Bonus to Leave program? Tell us a little bit about it. How did you develop it, and what impact it's had upon your firm?
So in the second week after training, we offer employees $2,000 to leave the company, including the time that they've already served at the company during their training process. And when we came up with that idea, it was met with a lot of resistance from legal and HR. Why would you pay someone to leave? They're not doing well. You want them to leave anyway. Why would you do that? And our philosophy is no matter how good we are at screening people and in the process, there's going to be people who don't believe that they're going to work out at Zappos. And instead of having them go through the training process and having us work with them and manage them out later on, it's just more efficient for us to pay them to leave, and because you know that you don't fit in this company faster than we're going to know. And there's a lot of studies that suggest that a bad employee in the company costs the company something like 20 times their annual salary. So $2,000 versus 20 times their annual salary, that's a small price to pay to have someone leave quickly if they're there just for the money.
Okay. Did you ever try to execute or create an initiative in your culture that didn't work? Or some programs that you started that just didn't take take a hold?
I think there's a lot of things that we do that are met with a lot of resistance initially. For example, this idea to have every single person go through customer loyalty training took a lot of convincing, a lot of time to actually have happen. So it almost failed. There's a lot of people who would have liked to not have gone through it, thought that the class and the work to talk to customers on the phone and pick, pack, and ship product to our customers was beneath them. But we learned over time that that actually has been very, very good for us. There's not a lot of things that we kind of just let fail and die. Like, if there was a reason for it, it may not have worked out, but let's modify that idea and let's change it so that it continues to live. And it might not get, the first round or the second round of implementation may not be the right thing, but if it was the right idea and the right strategy behind the idea, we'll constantly evolve it to make it work.
How do you deliver outstanding customer service when the only interaction between your company and your customers are the internet or the phone call?
Well, we think of it as a completely different, we think of it as in a completely different way than most companies think about customer service. Most companies think about customer service as a cost. We think of it as not just a department, it's an investment. And there have been times we say customer service is not just a department, it's also it's the whole company. And we take that pretty seriously, and that's why everybody goes through customer loyalty training. We view our interactions with our customers as a branding experience. So you can think of a phone call as it cost me, $10 to service this customer, or you can think of it as 5 minutes of undivided attention that you have with that customer. And your ability to connect with that customer on a one-on-one basis and make it a great experience is a branding experience. And so we think that the culture and the brand are pretty much the same side of pretty much two sides of the same coin. And so we want to deliver that experience to let them know who we are, and show them our authenticity and show them our culture.
Okay. What if you have any business books that you could recommend to the students that have been particularly influential that you've read?
My personal favorites, we have a library, and one of our core values is pursue growth and learning. And so in our lobby, there's a library of books that employees are asked to read or recommended to read. And some of those books are required for advancement inside of Zappos. They're actually, a lot of them are on our website. We also sell those books on our website, not because we want to be in the books business, but because we feel pretty passionate that some of these books are meaningful and useful. My personal favorites right now, for a long time I've always liked Good to Great because it's a good framework to think about business, what makes a business good and what prevents them from being great. I like Peak a lot because it sort of divides up your major constituents, whether it's your customer, your employee, or your investors, what their hierarchy of needs are. And I like Tribal Leadership because it speaks a lot to how we sort of run our company in the way we lead the company, as opposed to in a very hierarchical way. We're not a very top-down sort of kind of company.
Do you have any secrets about managing your time, your schedule that you'd like to share?
I don't do voicemails. I'm sure this group doesn't do voicemail either. I don't think I have any particular great secrets. I think a lot of time management ideas are out there. I think what is interesting is all of them work if you stick to it, and none of them work if you don't stick to it. So pick a framework, perfectly good to modify it. For example, we're a very email-intensive company. A lot of things get done on email, but email could also be a complete time suck. And you can decide to answer your emails right away, or you can sort of have time frames where you answer email. All those work, but you have to stick to it. It's just like anything else in terms of having discipline, whether you're working out or trying to be healthier. and eating right, etc. All of those things, all the sort of recommended ideas all work. You just have to stick to it.
I think we'll finish that, and thank you very much, Alfred. This has been wonderful.